Tom Bower is the final boss of celebrity biographers, a man who treats investigative journalism like a high-stakes chess match, where he is always 3 moves ahead of his prey. He doesn't just stumble into a scandal or tweet out half-baked rumors for clicks. Instead, he lingers in the shadows, meticulously stacking his evidence like a demolition expert preparing to take down a skyscraper. When he finally decides to speak, it is usually because he has found the exact structural flaw that will make the entire building crumble. Right now, the Sussexes are trying to cultivate this polished image of California wellness and serenity, but Tom Bower's latest claim suggests that the peace is about to be shattered in a way that makes their existing drama look like a playground dispute. If you live for the moments where the carefully managed celebrity mask finally slips, do yourself a massive favor and join the Star Report family by hitting that subscribe button. The paternity panic. The word bombshell gets tossed around a lot in the world of royal reporting, but what we are seeing now is more like a strategic demolition. Tom Bower has recently signaled that he is holding onto material that could potentially collapse the entire Sussex narrative in one go. We are not talking about anonymous chatter or vague vibes here. He is hinting at a trail of documents, flight logs, and timelines that suggest the story we have been told about the birth of Prince Harry's first child might have some glaring holes in it. When these hints first started circulating, the reaction from the Montecito camp was not exactly one of quiet confidence. Instead of ignoring the noise, the response was immediate and volcanic. Legal threats started flying, and messengers were dispatched to try and shut down the conversation before it could gain any more momentum. It felt less like a defense of the truth and more like a frantic attempt to corner a narrative that was starting to escape its cage. The reason this particular claim is so radioactive is that it strikes at the heart of the one thing a monarchy cannot afford to gamble with, which is certainty. Royal bloodlines and titles are built on the bedrock of legitimacy, and once you start poking holes in that, the entire institution starts to wobble. For Harry, this is not just tabloid sport, it is existential. The reports coming out of their inner circle describe a scene of absolute chaos, with phones being thrown and advisors being frozen out as the panic set in. The irony of the situation is that there is a very simple, very modern solution to end this entire saga instantly. A single DNA test would silence the doubters and end the speculation forever. Yet, despite the world watching and the pressure mounting, that is the one option that nobody seems to be reaching for. This silence is becoming a story in its own right, leaving the public to fill in the blanks with their own theories. The Colombian connection. As the internet began its usual deep dive into every scrap of information available, a new and rather specific detail emerged from the shadows. Bower has tied his upcoming revelations to what he calls unexplained travel anomalies and a previously undisclosed connection between Meghan and a businessman in Colombia. This is a name that has never really appeared in mainstream coverage before, but its sudden appearance has sent armchair detectives into a frenzy. People have resurfaced old charity trip logs and flight records, trying to piece together a map of her movements during those critical early years. It turns out that while the world was focused on the fairy tale wedding and the royal tours, there were other threads being woven in the background that did not quite make it into the official biography.
It's where I felt closest to my mother and sought solace after she died, and where I knew I had found a...
This deep dive into the archives has led to the resurrection of some very interesting screenshots and dates. A pattern started to form that, whether it turns out to be true or not, looks disturbingly coherent to those looking for answers. The focus has shifted from simple gossip to a much darker look at what people might be willing to hide, and the lengths they will go to manage their public history. It is a masterclass in how a carefully curated past can start to unravel the moment someone finds a thread that does not belong. The more the public looks at these timelines, the more the official story starts to feel like a script that has been edited just a few too many times. The husband who knew too much. Just when it seemed like the situation could not get any more tense, a voice from the past entered the arena. Trevor Engelson, the man who was essentially edited out of the Sussex fairy tale like an inconvenient prologue, has reportedly been put on the record. For over a decade, Trevor has maintained a dignified silence, acting as the footnote to a story that moved on without him. But according to the latest reports, that silence has finally cracked. He is not coming forward with theatrical accusations or anger, but with the kind of context that only comes from someone who lived through the early chapters of the Duchess's rise. He describes a marriage that did not end because of one big explosion, but because the trust simply evaporated as the ambition for international contacts and secrecy grew. Trevor's account allegedly touches on a specific night in a hotel hallway that has become the stuff of internet legend. He describes the sound of elevator doors closing and the sight of a man exiting a room that he had been told was empty. The most chilling part of his story is not the discovery itself, but the reaction he got when he asked for clarity. There was no guilt or shock, just an instant recalibration and a reframing of the situation as a strategic move for networking and opportunity. It is a glimpse into a world where everything is viewed through the lens of career momentum, and even a marriage can become a stepping stone. When Trevor later saw those same international connections resurfacing during the royal years, it reportedly made his stomach turn, realizing that some stories never truly end where you think they do. The mystery of the midnight photo. While the formal accounts were being processed, the digital world was rocked by a bizarre event that occurred at exactly 12:40 in the morning. An anonymous social media account appeared out of nowhere, posted a single image with a cryptic caption, and then vanished just as quickly as it arrived. The photo was intimate and unguarded, showing a woman who looked exactly like the Duchess in a luxury hotel hallway, leaning toward a man who was very clearly not Prince Harry. The lighting was warm, the setting was private, and the man's arm was around her waist in a way that screamed familiarity rather than friendship. Before the account was scrubbed, eagle-eyed users managed to zoom in and enhance the jewelry. They matched a specific leather bracelet with a metal cross pendant to the very same Colombian businessman that Bauer had mentioned. This was not a tall, lanky royal figure. This was someone athletic and confident, carrying an aura of power that did not rely on a title. The fact that the image went viral in minutes and was then professionally deleted only added to the sense of a high-stakes cover-up. It is the kind of evidence that does not need a long explanation because it speaks for itself, and it has left the Sussex camp in a state of visible retreat. The birth record paradox. One of the most persistent sticking points in this entire saga is the way the birth of Archie was handled by the palace and the couple. Unlike every other royal birth in modern history, there was a startling lack of traditional documentation. There was no named doctor, no hospital confirmation, and no immediate timestamps that could be verified by the public. Instead, the world was given vague statements and carefully managed appearances that deviated sharply from centuries of precedent. Tom Bauer claims to be sitting on documents that highlight these inconsistencies, suggesting that the medical records and the reporting gaps were not just bureaucratic accidents, but part of a deliberate effort to control the narrative. This lack of transparency has created a vacuum that is being filled by increasingly detailed theories. People are pointing to the fact that even the birth certificate itself was quietly amended weeks after the fact, scrubbing the Duchess's given names and leaving only her formal title. While the palace tried to wave this off as a minor adjustment for consistency, it proved to the public that official records are far more malleable than we like to believe. It opens up a Pandora's box of questions about what else might have been adjusted behind the scenes before the world was ever invited to see the final draft. The starlet strategy. To understand why someone would go to such lengths to manage their history, you have to look at the culture of Hollywood, the world Meghan was so desperate to conquer before she ever met a prince. In Tinseltown, age and history are the most flexible currencies. It is a place where aspiring actors have been shaving years off their resumes for a century just to stay marketable. In the early 2000s, the pressure to appear young was even more brutal than it is today. Being 28 instead of 24 could be the difference between landing a breakout role and being aged out of the industry entirely. When you look at it through the lens of a calculated career move, the idea of tweaking a birth date or a timeline does not seem like a malicious deception, but a survival strategy. The problem is that a small fib told to a casting director can quickly spiral into a full-blown alternate reality when you unexpectedly marry into one of the most traditional families on the planet. What was once a simple Hollywood tactic becomes a ticking time bomb at the heart of a global fairy tale. The claims about her Northwestern graduation and high school dates are starting to look less like random coincidences and more like a masterclass in PR that is finally being audited. The cracks in the mansion. Inside their Montecito estate, the atmosphere is reportedly shifting from defiance to genuine fear. Harry is seeing the world react to these claims, not with skepticism, but with a growing sense of belief. And in the world of public opinion, belief is far more dangerous than proof. Belief does not wait for a courtroom or a DNA kit. It spreads through gut-level patterns and the sense that something just does not add up. The latest reports suggest that even Harry is starting to ask questions he never allowed himself to voice before. He is looking at the dates and the missing medical specifics and wondering why everything surrounding his own son's arrival was so tightly controlled. The moment he reportedly asked why they would not just do the test to end the drama, the room went cold. The response he got was not an answer, but a redirection, accusing him of betraying his family and letting palace paranoia poison his mind. It is a classic move of turning the defense into an attack, but it has left a permanent crack in their foundation. He is realizing that the rebellion he built his life around might have been based on a story he never truly verified. The modern fairy tale is no longer just cracking, It is hemorrhaging, and the world is simply waiting to see which piece of the truth finally ends the nightmare. The verdict.
Gratitude. She doesn't see herself other than always being victimized because people don't recognize her greatness and generosity and campaigning fervor. We look for it but don't find it. And that's but on the other hand, what's interesting is that Ted Sarandos, the head of Netflix, when he dumped her.
Let's tally up. We have got a trail of edited documents, a husband from the past who is finally speaking up, and a mysterious photo that refuses to be forgotten. Is this all just a sequence of unfortunate coincidences, or are we looking at a narrative that has been polished with surgical precision until it finally snapped? The documents are still out there, the archives are being searched, and the people who knew the Duchess before the crown are starting to talk louder than ever. We want to know where you stand on this. Do you think the truth is about to come out, or is this just another chapter in their never-ending drama? Drop your theories in the comments, because we are dying to see what you think.